I stepped into a cozy cafe for tea, only to discover it had burned down 17 years ago, and I was never supposed to leave. I had never noticed the little cafe tucked behind the ivy-covered alley on Mulberry Lane. Rain was coming down in thick sheets that evening, and my umbrella had flipped inside out. Desperate for shelter, I turned the hidden corner and found it, Café Bellamy, a quaint little place with frosted windows glowing orange from the light within. The wooden sign above the door creaked as the wind blew, but the smell of baked pastries and cinnamon drifted through the cracks, oddly inviting. I stepped inside, half expecting an empty room, but instead found it warm and bustling. A soft jazz tune played on a vintage radio, and a few patrons sat quietly sipping tea. Everything looked like it had been frozen in time: checkered tablecloths, brass teapots, even an old rotary phone hanging on the wall. It felt like stepping into a photograph from the 1960s. She was standing behind the counter when I approached, a woman in her late 20s, with porcelain skin and dark hair pinned up neatly. She smiled, though something about it felt, still, too perfect. "Raining hard out there," she said, her voice as delicate as the china cup she handed me. "You'll feel better after a warm cup of Darjeeling." I hadn't ordered yet. Still, I took the tea, sat by the window, and watched the droplets race down the glass. The tea was unlike anything I'd ever tasted, floral, rich, and oddly nostalgic, like memories I couldn't place. But as I sipped, I noticed something strange. No one else moved. The other patrons were silent, frozen in their seats, cups halfway to their lips. I blinked. A second later they were sipping again, like time had skipped a beat. And then the lights flickered. The lights steadied, but something had shifted. The hum of the radio was gone, replaced by a low crackling sound, like an old record spinning at the wrong speed. I glanced back toward the woman behind the counter, but she was no longer there. My teacup trembled slightly in my hand, the liquid inside unnaturally still despite my shaking fingers. I stood up, trying to shake off the unease. Maybe I was tired. Maybe the storm was playing tricks on me. I wandered toward a wooden display cabinet near the back of the cafe, curious about the decor. Inside were black and white photographs, old snapshots of the cafe and its past patrons. But as I leaned in, my stomach twisted. One of the photographs showed me. There I was, sitting at the very window where I just sipped my tea. The teacup was in my hand, my coat was soaked just like now, and my face was turned slightly toward the camera, unaware. The photo was aged, faded at the edges, like it had been there for decades. I stumbled back, knocking a stool to the floor. No one turned to look. No one even flinched. That's when the woman reappeared. She was closer this time, standing in front of me with that same unblinking smile. "Did you enjoy your tea?" she asked softly. I managed a nod, heart thudding. What is this place?" Her head tilted, expression unchanged. "You found it? Most people forget the way after the fire." "The fire?" I repeated. She nodded slowly, almost sadly. "Café Bellamy burned down 17 years ago. Everyone inside perished. Everyone, except one." My breath caught. She reached out and gently placed a hand on my shoulder. "And now you've come back." My legs felt heavy, as if rooted to the floor. Her words echoed in my head. "You've come back." I hadn't been here before. I would have remembered this place. Wouldn't I? She gestured to a table in the corner, far from the windows and wrapped in shadow. As I turned toward it, the chatter in the cafe faded again, muffled like sound behind glass. I walked slowly, drawn in as if by instinct rather than will. On the table lay a scorched journal. The leather cover was charred, the edges curled from heat. I reached out, fingers trembling, and opened it. The pages inside were untouched by fire, neatly written entries in looping cursive. Every page told the same story: a man lost in a storm, finding shelter in Café Bellamy, being served tea by a woman with porcelain skin, and then vanishing. Each entry ended the same way. He didn't remember until it was too late. A sudden memory surged forward, brief, disjointed, and terrifying. I saw flames. Screaming. Smoke curling through those same windows I had just been watching the rain from. The woman, her dress soaked in soot, face streaked with ash, dragging me toward the back door. But she hadn't made it. I had. The memory hit like a bolt of lightning. I had been here. I was the survivor. "No one ever truly leaves," her voice whispered behind me. I spun around. Everyone in the cafe had stood up. Their faces were pale and ashen, their eyes vacant and hollow. The air smelled suddenly of burnt wood and old smoke. And behind them, the walls began to blister and blacken, just like before. I hadn't found the cafe. It had found me. The air thickened with smoke, not imagined this time, but real, tangible, clawing at my throat with every breath. I backed away from the scorched journal, now smoldering on the table as if it had ignited from memory alone. Flames licked up the walls, creeping like vines across the old wallpaper, yet none of the patrons moved to escape. They only stared. The woman approached me again, slower this time, her hands clasped gently before her. Her once pristine apron now bore soot stains, and her hair was falling from its perfect pins. The illusion was unraveling. "You weren't meant to leave," she said, voice cracking with something old and brittle. "You escaped the fire, but your soul never did." I shook my head, stepping back toward the door. "No, I was a child. They told me I was found blocks away. I don't remember." "You remembered enough to find your way back," she interrupted gently. "No one finds Bellamy's unless something inside them is still burning." The windows were glowing now, not from fire but from outside. Red and blue lights flickered through the smoke. Sirens. Shouts. Reality bleeding through. I turned the brass doorknob, but it wouldn't budge. From behind, the other patrons began whispering in unison. A chant. A prayer. A curse. "He left us. He left us. He left us." I pressed my shoulder to the door. Wood cracked. The smoke thickened. I gasped, trying to breathe, vision spinning. "You drank the tea," the woman said calmly. "That's the offering. That's the return." Through the smoke, I saw my reflection in the cafe's mirror, only it wasn't me. It was the boy from the past. Hair soot blackened, eyes wide with terror. A child lost in a fire he wasn't meant to survive. And the cafe was taking me back. The mirror fogged, and the image of the frightened boy faded. I stumbled backward, the heat pressing against my skin like invisible hands. The walls groaned around me, flames now dancing freely along the ceiling beams. The other patrons were closing in, their expressions mournful, not angry, as if mourning me, or perhaps what I had forgotten. The woman held the same delicate teacup from earlier, unburned and pristine. She stepped forward, extending it to me once more. "One last sip and you'll remember it all. The truth. The ending." I didn't want it. Every instinct in me screamed to run, to break free, but the door behind me had vanished. There was no outside anymore. Only the fire, and the tea. I took the cup. The porcelain was ice cold, a stark contrast to the heat around me. I raised it to my lips and drank. The world collapsed. I saw it all, the fire beginning in the kitchen, the panic, the screams. I saw myself crawling under a table as the smoke thickened. I saw her shielding me with her body, guiding me to a broken back door while others burned. She had saved me. But I had forgotten. The moment I finished the tea, the cafe fell silent. The flames stopped moving, suspended mid-air like frozen ribbons. The patrons slowly turned and sat down once more, returning to their half-finished cups as though nothing had happened. And I was standing behind the counter. She was gone. Her apron now hung on a hook beside the register. My reflection in the mirror wore her smile. The door creaked open. A man stepped in, soaked from the rain, eyes wide with wonder. "Cold out there," I said, reaching for the kettle. "You'll feel better after a warm cup of tea."